That's
sitting.
it,
Yeah,
that's seated, yeah.
Yeah.
Seated. But, you know, we lose veterans, you know. We used to have a lot of World War II veterans now. That's been skinny up in the Korean War. And it depends on what time of day or night you have it too.
Is a stage an option, or do we not have enough room in the multi-purpose?
Be awesome.
It takes up a lot of room, so if we do them, we generally, I've only done one recent in the last 10 years, and that's a movable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people don't, you know, they have to get handicap access, and it sort of gets.
As you noticed that it's a functional, it has other cities and towns.
They haven't done it,
Not-
just
they
because
haven't
it takes
done
up
it.
so much space.
Okay.
Yeah,
The ones we've seen that do have it wish they didn't have it.
yeah.
You know, takes a lot of space.
The Mancini Center has a small, in North Providence,
Yeah,
they have a small stage. Not a stage like you think of, but, you know, a small.
Yeah,
small
there's
stage.
little movable stages that we could,
No, actually it's
it's
permanent,
permanent.
but it's small,
Yeah.
it's small.
I
Could I
think-
make a suggestion?
yeah,
I had come tonight basically to advocate for having an art space. You may not have known, but before the pandemic, I tried to run some culinary classes, some cooking classes, and some art classes in town. And I went to the school department to ask to use their spaces because they were supposedly open to it, but they really were not.
Well, there could be spaces.
Well, the thing for an art
Yeah.
space though is it kind of has to be dedicated to art because
Yeah.
it's messy.
yeah.
And you need a space that you can, Jackson Pollock, you know, to give you the freedom to do that. But other than that, it's cheap because you just need a concrete floor and a wash sink and some storage that you can lock because art supplies are so expensive.
I guess I've just been in centers where we have to multi-purpose things, but, you know, you can have art classes.
I mean,
We have,
if
yeah.
people don't mind sitting in a messy space, they can certainly use it for other things.
Yeah.
One of the things that we run into is if there's like a quilting group, they don't want to have to take the quilts down
Right, exactly.
every day.
Yeah.
But the flex room
The flex room, yeah.
is really, it has a floor, it looks like a wood floor, but it's actually a cushioned floor. You can hold all tables like this, but you can also do exercise on it, you can do art.
Well, the
It's a
thing is, if you
synthetic-
spill a can of paint,
It's,
it could be permanent.
Yeah.
it would be on if it's on a concrete floor too.
Right, but you don't care, that's the point.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been in a university arts center,
Yeah,
Yeah.
what does it look like?
Yeah.
Polished concrete.
Yeah.
And it's a mess, and they actually probably take their sofas they use from the backs of the fraternities as the next life for those sofas, which will tell you what kind of bohemian lifestyle these people live. But it's just it's a space where you can allow it to be messy, you can put string up and hang your prints on it, you can, but there just is no other place in town to do this type of work. Because there just is no other place. We could use other places like Memorial Town Hall for conferences or for meeting spaces, but there's just no other place in town for art. And I just think art is an important activity that anyone can do.
I mean, it is, because
Any
we
age,
do
any
it.
sex,
But we
any
need to,
disability or
you know,
ability.
they do when you have the, you know.
It's just, so I think that would be a strong component to our community to be able to do that.
Where would that fit? It wouldn't fit in this footprint currently, would it?
Well, it would fit into one of those rooms where you'd have to have the wash-up sink.
yeah, the flex room.
The flex room.
We could add a sink to the flex room easily enough. We typically would do that.
Or kind of create, segregate an area with exposed concrete or whatever.
And I did try running some classes in the basement at the Grange Hall here, but they keep that place meticulously
Yeah,
nice.
that's an
And I spent one evening on my hands and knees with a wet paper towel getting up glitter. I said, I do not want to ever do that again. So it's just nice to have the freedom to be messy.
Right. I had completed an art center up in Weston. It was in their old library, and in the basement, we basically made that a mess hall. We did polished concrete, we did floor drains, we had sinks everywhere. All the electrical came from the top, from the ceiling. You could pull down your outlets, and it had a series of movable tables. And at the end of the day, if they needed to, they could get a hose, wash down the whole space, and be
Yeah.
done.
So see, that's an ideal way to do it, right in the basement.
So,
Or get rid of the conference room.
Western,
yeah, the Western
Yeah,
Architects.
the ground, if
what
you
is-
even need it.
Yeah, what kind of, like the conference room with this facility, you would know best, but is that something that's likely to be utilized frequently?
It can be used for small, some educational events,
Or community committees.
committees, or, we're saying a conference room, but that certainly could be used like for a quilting room.
If you put a big conference table there, you're not moving a big conference
Yeah.
table, so is it better off to be maybe,
Yeah, well, I don't think you have to have a conference room with a big table, but,
Hmm.
just a room where you can use it for many different things. Because quilting is very,
Right, but they might be able to use one side of the main hall.
you're probably better off in
So the quilters will need, what did we say, outlets every 6 feet?
yeah, we need outlets, yeah.
The sewing machines.
Yep,
Yeah.
which is,
Is this presentation just for us to absorb and take home and
Yeah.
use?
Yeah, folks are-
One last thing I want to mention on this one, we did take a look at adding a family restroom. I know we discussed that last week. Tried to fit that in. So the entrance of these bathrooms is a little further from this area to squeeze that in, but if this is,
I think that's fundamental. I think
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
should insist that that be part of,
okay.
because I think it's fair to say that if it's truly to be used by the community,
You need a family room,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's the other thing too, though, in the bathrooms. I'm a senior advocate. Will they be like handicap accessible and
they have,
and
that's a
dogs and
law.
all of that stuff?
Yeah, that's
law.
Toilets, the high seats.
We'd be in big trouble if we didn't.
Yeah, that's a law.
That's a liability if we didn't do that.
Yeah, okay.
As far as the bathrooms, too, you also have to realize family bathrooms, you're dealing with seniors and you're dealing with people who may have Alzheimer's and dementia and need assistance going to the bathrooms.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why, yeah, we talked
I
about
think
that,
that's important.
Is there a design that you guys think
I
is,
think they're all, I don't like the kitchen on the front because the
Yeah.
exhaust vents and that, but the other ones I think are just, I think the idea is that the plan's very flexible and it's sort of holding together from the
and does
feasibility.
one
study.
lend itself more to expansion than
They
another
all,
They all-
they all have that same
66 is the red
fundamental,
line.
connecting point?
yeah.
66 is the total, so the red line
The red
is
line.
900 square feet, so if we take that out, we get 57.
So effectively,
Oh, okay, all right.
for the expansion, we'd be taking this plan and mirroring it, right?
It's, yeah, yeah.
It's a little different on each of the site plans,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can go either way.
So, let's say that for everyone's point of reference, the oak tree is down towards the bottom of the page. If we wanted to maintain the expansion that we were looking at with the site plans, we would just have to flip this plan because we'd be using the cafe, lounge, lobby space to extend the rest of the building, as we've done in the master
So
plan.
come out this way.
Yeah.
Maybe, like Joel said, we can make it work just coming down to this way.
And option 3 for orientation of the site,
The sort of
you just
surround.
rotate it accordingly.
It's a little confusing.
Yep.
But I think what we wanted to point out is that this is a footprint that we've been using on the site plans, which makes some sense because it seems to be the right size square footage and it can be added, it's holding together as an idea.
Because the other one we looked at was 68.
No, they're all very good.
Okay.
I actually prefer the first floor plan, just because I think it checks all the boxes that we had originally started with the exception of looking at, adding the family restroom into that,
And shower.
in the shower. I think that really still holds true to what the approved master plan was, and it starts to check all the boxes for the activities that we're looking to accommodate in here. And it also accommodates all the different, exterior elements that we're going to start to kind of develop as well. between, you know, the patio coming out from the multi-purpose space and the flex program. And there's certainly the ability to figure out the programming and, you know, the conference room, the activity space, and the flex programming as well. And it gives us, it's still loose enough to kind of give us an ability to continue moving forward. So then you guys could perhaps move into elevational development and too.
Is it possible to take the storage from 2 and incorporate it into 1, or no? Because the storage, you see how the storage bumps out?
Yeah.
Plan 2
You could,
versus taking up the space.
I'd rather have it be on the interior.
The reason I
because
liked it there is it.
On the exterior, you want
It's
it.
noise separation.
That is the
between-
view, okay, that's what I was getting
Oh,
at.
yes, and noise separation.
Yeah,
Good point.
that's a buffer. Okay.
But I think that this gives you even, if worse came to worse, we needed to take more square footage off, we can take that room, or we could make the multi-purpose room smaller. So the way the plan is configured, it gives us very much flexibility to adapt as the grants come or don't.
Yeah, right, I get you.
Good, I like it, as long as we can put in a changing room there for the family.
So we put changing tables in every set of bathrooms, so we don't discriminate on it.
Okay, yeah, well, that's smart.
I think, you know, you throw them in the women's room, you throw them in the men's room, and the family room.
Those storage areas that we have, they're enough to put these chairs away and the tables away.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it would be good for Joel and Jeremy to have the specs on the chairs and tables that we've already been
Yeah.
purchased.
We can get that.
Okay. When we email Mark, we can copy Bobby and get the.
Yeah.
There was a grant that the town was awarded, and we purchased tables and chairs. They're stored over at the police station right now. So we get those
Round
specs.
tables.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
they-
Yeah, that's good. And they can design accordingly.
Yeah,
That's funny.
and the chairs are white. Nice cushion solid, high enough for people to sit around.
Yeah.
Many tables would be better.
Oh,
Well, did we want to, did we want to ask Joel, or just move internally the idea of fundraising of arbitrarily assigning a dollar value to rooms? So if we wanted to have additional fundraising?
I think we can come up with a number ourselves.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was
Honestly,
saying.
if we want to be looking at fundraising and having sponsorship opportunities, I think that can just be a conversation that we have and then make that
Or you just set
recommendation.
minimum and say, it's at least this much, and
Right.
if you want to give more, you can.
Right. I know in past libraries, you know, we would do study rooms and they would be X amount, and if they wanted to do the giant meeting room, that would be an X amount. You know, your level of donors, you know, how you have like platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, if you wanted to do something like that too.
And-
Because there could be people that don't want anything named after them, there could just be a donation.
General donation.
You know, similar to what we have at the library for the Friends. They just have that slate wall with everyone's names carved into it.
Other question, though, briefly, is the outside, the patio, is that currently assigned, or is that an alternate?
It's in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the idea of incorporating the sold brick idea with the engravement is something that could be designed.
Do that, yeah.
That's an easy one, as far as.
Okay.
You can just let this sit and let us think about it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
I like this one.
so Joel and Jeremy, for next steps then, it sounds like now that we've kind of are gravitating towards one version of this plan, and if anyone's gravitating towards another version, please say so.
Well, I would make a motion that we have a preliminary approval of one, subject to the revisions that were discussed today, such as the change in the bathroom situation, or was there anything else that was of substance? The shower and so at least we can move forward.
And this isn't a surprise to anybody, this plan is sort of.
You've all seen it for
It's-
years now.
Yeah.
Well, that's
We have anyway.
pretty much the one we've always been looking at.
It's just a development of that, yeah.
So I'll make the motion that we approve on a preliminary basis floor plan number 1, pending follow-up revisions as noted with the shower and the bathroom changing area.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Can I make a motion on something that has, it's relating to this and all, but Bob, you had brought it up, and I think it was at one of our first meeting,
Yeah.
and we talked about, do we bill for, well, should we ask the council, get direction from the council? Do we bill for what we have or what we want?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we should, before we spin our wheels too much, what are you thinking?
Well, I think we had excellent feedback from the town administrator on the very real potential.
Well, no,
I
there's
think we have to
potential
hope
grants.
that we
yeah.
anticipate and we go in that direction. And if we hit a wall, the last thing this committee should do, in my opinion, is to just rely on what the administrator was trying to do.
That we get it.
And see if, because he even mentioned that the next phase for him was to look for
For more.
non-governmental.
Right.
But I really think that if we have a vision, you should design to the vision. And if, worst case scenario, you start the chopping block.
Well, I asked that because I remember you had brought it up, and I said,
It's a fundamental question.
Well, it is a very fundamental
And that's-
question, and before we spin our wheels too much, you
And
know.
there's going to be a point, as we said before, where we get to, where we have to say, okay, we're going to move forward with the full proposal, or we've gotten budgetary numbers back, okay, where do we need to cut? This is where we're going to recommend to be cut out of the project, and that's what goes out to bid. And similar to what was just presented, that red line.
Yeah, I'm looking at the red line, yeah.
That's our ad alternate, so that's a separate bucket. So we have our budget. If we exceed our budget, or we get those additional grants, and we can fit all this in, great, no issue.
Because-
Because there are going to be, there will be a point in time, and I don't think that point in time is going to be right now, because if we make that decision tonight, then we're painting ourselves into a corner. And I, going through this multiple times, there's always going to be the point in construction documents of which we're not even close to yet, where we can say, okay, here's our hard line. This is what we're going to move forward with, because that's what our budget can afford, and here's what we're going to take out, or here's what we're going to slice
So
out.
we can take and you know, what I'm thinking is we should, I wonder when we're going to hear from the latest ones that you sent a letter in support, as did I. We'll probably hear from that soon.
Yeah.
Because right now, we have how many? We have 5 million.
Yep.
5 million, with the 1 million that we can use for the exterior, for that type of a thing.
So, and don't forget that part of this committee's charge is
Is
to
to find, yeah.
find additional funding.
Yeah, no, I know
That's
that.
our first one.
Yeah, no, I
So
know that.
if there are, I've been keeping my ears open, it sounds like Mr. Gibbs has been keeping his
Yeah.
ears open.
Yes, he is.
And as has been mentioned, there are probably more than enough people that would like to see their name on a donor list for this.
So I'm wondering if the chairs want to put it on an agenda, we take 15 minutes and we talk about how we can create a fundraising effort within our committee, where we go to the industrial drive, we go to as many local corporate as we can we almost have a marketing packet right here, with a little bit of tweaking it, and actually see if we can come up with a systematic method where we say, okay, we're going to go to 5 businesses on industrial and say, clearly we want to start with a minimum dollar value and say, and either it's 50 or it's 60 or it's whatever, and try to approximate and say, well, it's likely we might raise a quarter. Because if we're off by half and we can pick up a quarter, then you'll
Well,
stumble
if we're up by
stumble
half,
our
that's
way.
not bad at all.
Exactly. Meaning if what the administrator thinks
Right,
will
yeah.
come in at maybe 750 short, if we can pick up 250 locally, and as everyone said, there are countless businesses, not to mention wealthy individuals.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But I think we need to give it some serious
Well, and I
discussion.
bring that up, Bob, because I remember you had brought that up at a meeting, and I said, we perhaps should, be thinking of it. But, I'm hopeful now that maybe we're going to get that grant from Senator Reed.
You need
Yeah,
those
that
things?
would be,
No, unless there's any questions for Joel and Jeremy.
no.
Okay. No, we're good.
It's a small well, another 10 minutes from the project you did.
That's my baby.
I'm going there tomorrow, and the country club had a
That's a great
fire.
project.
Thank
What was
you.
it, right on 30?
Why not?
I get moved in the morning. No, well, yeah. I'm not fine.
Thank you.
All right.
The next one.
So this one will cost.
That's what,
Is that the next one?
the whole thing right now is within the $5.9 million.
Yeah, I think all of them.
Even with this part?
Yes. So the budget, right, the budget that they had, or the estimate that BH+A had given us was for $5.9 million for a 6,600 square foot building.
And this, yeah, see, you know what messed me up? The other
It
was
was the
68.
68, yeah, that-
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
That's like
I think they got
I don't think you
excited.
said 68.
They got dumped on that one.
Yeah, it was 66.
No, I don't pull that, that appropriation would be very,
Yeah.
very,
Yeah,
very
we're within striking distance, so
I think
I'm
we
hopeful.
could get corporate money. I mean, you guys know this community better than I do. I just remember all those business owners that came when 6.19 was being debated, and they all stood up with great pride saying how they love this community. So I'm saying, well, okay, you love it that much, now's the time to show it.
I bring it up,
Yep.
you mentioned it.
You know, we'll-
We need to pay
Well, that'll be on the next
attention.
agenda.
Yeah, we always have to have it.
We have to have that,
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
I agree.
gee, I'd like to have a lot of things.
But I like to think positive that we're gonna get there, because it's
I'm-
really a one shot.
I'm having a good feeling about that one point. I have a good feeling about that one.
So, say you have a mail site like we have the other places, would you use those 10 tables or 15 tables here? Is the kitchens there?
Well, if this became a meal
You could
site,
put it in the lobby area, you know. That's a multi-purpose.
and how many did we say this? How?
They could lay it, once you give him the table,
Yeah,
once you give him the spec on the table, he could
yeah.
lay it down and tell him.
I